Welcome to today's video. I want to talk about setting limitations in art today and how it can actually boost your creativity. I chose to make a collage with cool colors, so not focusing on red, orange, and yellow, and instead focusing on green, blue, and purple, kind of the cool color palette. And when I'm focused on something, when I have that restriction or have that limitation, it frees my brain up to not worry about all the other decisions I could be making. So I've already kind of narrowed my focus to these three colors. As I'm searching for my collage materials, I can just eliminate all the other things that don't fit into that bucket. What that does is it sets me up with extra brain space that's not been exhausted by making decisions, so that I can focus more on my intuition and just playing around. And it led to some interesting results. I later on made a warm colored collage. I attempted to record it, but my phone died in the middle of recording it. So I can show you the end result. And in both cases, I created something different than what I normally make. I had different colors. I was more open to making other decisions and taking a little bit more risks and shapes and just other decisions that I could make easily because my brain wasn't bogged down by everything else under the sun that I could have thought of. So come on and join me, I'll show you what I made. If you are looking for a place to try out limitations and setting rules for yourselves or guidelines, I would encourage you to download my free guide to grid journaling called Grid Journaling Made Easy. It could not get easier to have a place to play and try out different limitations. Change your color palette, change your shapes you're making, change the tools you're using. Use crayons, use neocolors, use watercolors, use acrylic, use anything you want. You can try it out. 9 little versions on one sheet. Print out as many sheets as you want and have fun. To get this grid, you can go to braveartplayground.com/grid. Have you playing? As part of this week's Brave Art and Wellness workshops, all of the sessions made collages with the goal of using mostly cool colors or warm colors. So the limitation in that prompt was just to narrow it down. Narrow down your color palette, choose either red, yellow, orange as your warm colors, or focus on green, blue, purple as your cool colors. In the beginning, I got stuck on these peppers that I had to cut out exactly with my X-Acto knife. So go figure. Eventually, I switch over to cool colors once I kind of remembered what I was doing, and didn't find any other warm colors that felt super urgent, I guess, in my art making. When I began gluing things down, the cool colors kept coming at me, and they were very muted. So I'm starting with these, they're actually teeny tiny diagonal green lines. I know it doesn't come across well. It looks very gray, and there's some black and white there. It was very neutral at first. So black, but the shapes are more unique than I'm used to, that I typically focus on anyway. I typically stick to like rectangles or just torn pieces. I didn't use a ton of saturated color, but this is an exception. So this is some of my hand-painted paper, the green. And once I put the green down, I followed that. So I haven't planned out the colors I'm using. I haven't planned out the scraps I'm using. I have a ton of scraps all over my desk because I'm doing lots of collages every week. And I'm taking what's around me, parsing it out, seeing how it lines up. I liked how that leaf on the apple matched up with the leaf of the potted plant in that window picture on the upper right. And I'm just seeing how things match up. I liked the black became a continuation of this island in the middle of the lake. And I'm truly remaining open to whatever piece I'm working on and what comes next. So if I'm not sure what to do, if I don't have a reaction to the things on the page, I'm looking at my scraps, I'm picking something out that looks cool, finding a spot for it to go on my pages in my sketchbook. And there's a beard on that guy. I'll show you at the end what the enlarged pictures look like, because there are a lot of strange connections that I really got a kick out of. This is me going through my scrap bin of smaller scraps. It felt different doing this. I often set limitations or limited color palettes or just some prompt to put us in a direction. Because otherwise you can get stuck with all of the options in the world. If you've ever tried to take out all your art supplies and, quote, make some art, it can be paralyzing at times. Some people love it. Some people feel paralyzed by it because there's too many options. It's so much easier for me personally, and I think for lots of people, if you even limit your supplies. So here I'm using basically the scraps that are on my desk. So I have a little bin off to the right of my smaller scraps. I have tons of just magazine pages all over my desk that were offcuts from other collage pieces I used, or just things that I'd cut out and hadn't used yet for other collages. And I had some hand-painted papers in the scrap bin as well. I was very focused on staying present. And what I mean by that is I wasn't planning. I wasn't thinking, ooh, I have this scrap of, kale. How can I fit this in there? That's not a bad thing to do. It's just that for the purposes here, I was really focused on letting the papers that were on my sketchbook page lead me to whatever happened next. I found lots of little fun connections too that felt quirky and good. I like it when the curve on that far left side, that hose or basket handle, whatever that is, I like how that arc fit into other things. I find that when I limit my subject or my theme, so in this case I'm limiting my color palette and the papers I'm choosing from. I'm not choosing from all of my magazines. I'm not taking 50 magazines out to look through. That would be completely overwhelming and way too much for these 2 sketchbook pages. When I limit something and I limit my topic, it frees up my creativity to make decisions that otherwise my brain would just be overwhelmed by. If I have 100 pages to look through, my brain is going to be very busy filtering through all of that and less interested in finding unique shapes or finding things to match up or looking for desaturated greens that normally I might just pass by and assume that they're just kind of gray, mid-tone whatevers. But limiting my color palette helped me skip by all the reds, aside from the peppers that I was obsessed with in the very beginning. And it helps me also make little cuts to remove things. You can see there's red in the middle of the left page, and I'm covering it up little bit by little bit. Now, I'm not anti putting some complementary colors in there. That's not a problem. None of it's really a problem. If you decide halfway through your limitations, oh my gosh, I need tons of warm colors in here too, then by all means, go for that. Do it. Rules are meant to be broken, but rules can also be very helpful. And these aren't even really rules, they're guidelines, but they're guidelines to help you focus and begin and know what you're looking for, right? Have some direction that you're headed in, right? If you're planning a road trip and you're gonna go to Michigan and you swing by Chicago on the way to Michigan and you decide, hey, I wanna spend a couple more days in Chicago, that doesn't mean you did your trip wrong. It means you found something else that you're interested in and you built that into your trip. Similar here. Never used travel as a metaphor for collage before, but hey, there's a first time for everything. There's nothing wrong with setting out to say, I'm going to use cool colors. And then later saying, hey, look, I put a little pink in there. Talk about timing, huh? I'm putting a little pink in here, a little red in here on that scrap. Now, look how much attention it gets because it's the only one on that page. It's the only one that stays. How's that? And now it's even more interesting because it was limited everywhere else. Because that's the only part that's warm in this cool collage. It's fun how our brains get in the way of ourselves. We get in our own way all the time. If you are frustrated by that and you want something different, or you just want to experiment and explore, I highly encourage you to set a guideline for yourself. Limit something. Limit to just one magazine and see how much collage you can make out of one magazine. Limit to one color. Limit to 2 colors. Limit to only your hand-painted scraps. Limit to only the scraps that are too small that you're just about to throw them all away. Just use that. Make some sort of boundary around your art so that you don't have everything you ever collected for collage materials at your disposal, so that you don't get overwhelmed by decision fatigue and you don't overthink everything. Use what you've got, point yourself in a direction, and see where that leads you. I hope you enjoy the finished ones. I also recorded, as I mentioned, a series of me making warm collages as well, but my phone died, so sadly I only have the finished products. And in that one, because I was leaving myself open and because I chose to do warm colors, guess what I learned? I learned that brown is a very warm color, and typically I don't use brown, but in the case of the brown and reddish collage that I made with all these warm colors, I absolutely went crazy with how much I like the brown. Had you said, Jackie, make a brown and red collage, I would have thought you were a crazy person. But it turns out it worked out really well. And the only reason I even reached for the brown, I'm sure, is because I limited myself to the warm colors, and that fit in the category. So check, I can use it. And it turned out really cool. So let me know, what's your favorite limitation? If you were going to pick warm or cool colors, which bucket does your heart want to go to? And remember to experiment and have fun.